This is the Life by Design with Angela Weiss podcast, episode 36, Sunday Faith Edition. God met Emma there, and God met me there too. Welcome back to the Life by Design with Angela Weiss podcast. I'm Angela Weiss, nurse practitioner, author, mom, and someone who believes very deeply that God is often working in the places we do not understand until we're looking backward. Well, he always is, right? Before we begin today, just a reminder, this podcast is educational, reflective, and faith-based, and my own lived experiences and perspectives. It's not medical advice, mental health treatment, crisis care, or individualized spiritual counseling. And also, I'm sitting outside today, and it's beautiful, and the birds are loud, and so are the people in the neighborhood, but it's a beautiful day, and life happens everywhere as it should. Okay, so today's episode is deeply personal, and honestly, I think this is one of those episodes that I probably needed to hear myself, because today I want to talk about the God who knows every detail of our lives before we ever arrive here. The God who sees roads, people, careers, intersections, connections, heartbreak, healing, long before we understand what any of it means. And today's title, God met Emma there and God met me there too, is very important. I want to start in Psalm 139. For you created my inmost being. You knit me together in my mother's womb. Your eyes saw my unformed body. All the days ordained for me were written in your book before one of them came to be. Sit with that. Before one day, before my entire life, before Emma's life, before your life, before the people who would someday intersect with us in ways we could never even imagine before we were ever born, God knew. And I've shared pieces of this before, but there is something that I've been thinking about a lot lately. When I was younger, there was a particular stretch of road that every time I crossed that area, I noticed it. I would look over, I would wonder about it. And I cannot fully explain why. I just had this feeling that there was something more to it. I didn't know then that one day that would be the road where my daughter Emma would meet Jesus. I didn't know how could I? But God knew. Not because God causes tragedy. I want to be very clear there and careful. But because God exists outside of time in a way we don't understand. He saw the entire story while I was still living page to page, page one. And I think sometimes we spend so much of our lives believing we're walking into unknown territory, while God is already standing there saying, I know this. I've seen this chapter already. But there's another piece to this. My life has had a lot of unexpected roads, and sometimes lately I've been looking backward and realizing how many things I thought were random were not random at all. I became a police dispatcher in 1998, 911 and police dispatcher, same thing. I worked dispatch until 2004, and I need to correct something because I've actually said my age wrong before, in my book probably even too. Memory's funny after decades of carrying difficult things, but dispatch shaped me profoundly. Dispatch teaches you calm inside of chaos, and you learn to steady other people's fear. You learn to lower your voice when somebody else's world is falling apart. You learn how to think clearly while adrenaline is flooding the room, and you learn how to answer impossible calls. And if you've ever worked dispatch or worked in healthcare or emergency services, you know something else too. There are calls that stay with you for life. Calls you never fully forget. Then came the ICU and the ER, working forensic psychiatry with very dangerous criminals, chaotic environments, death, dying trauma, bad news conversations, people living through unimaginable things. And somewhere along the way, I also went to school for education, teaching, explaining, and helping people understand. And later, funeral services, because years ago I thought my path would move toward funeral work. Life changed directions a lot. That career never unfolded, and yet looking backwards now, I can see pieces I carried from every one of those experiences, learning how to sit quietly, how to speak gently, how to help people through impossible conversations, and how to be the calm under pressure, how to hold space when grief enters the room. And lately, I've wondered, was God wasting any of that, or was he weaving it all together for something more than what I could see? Because sometimes preparation does not look like preparation. Sometimes it looks like ordinary work days, ordinary education, ordinary jobs, ordinary experiences, until one day you realize God was building tools you would someday need. But there's another truth here too, and this one is important, especially for healthcare workers, dispatchers, first responders, caregivers, people who are always strong for everyone else. I don't think I realized how much those experiences were affecting me. I functioned and I worked and I showed up and I achieved and I moved forward. I just kept moving. And because I was functioning, I thought I was fine. But surviving is not always the same thing as healing. And sometimes we carry things for years without realizing they're still living inside of us. And then came the day of Emma's accident. Everything came crashing down. Not metaphorically, literally. All of the accumulated grief, all of the trauma and all of the experiences, all of the things I thought I had handled, and standing there, seeing what had just happened to my daughter. None of my training could protect me from being a mother. Dispatch couldn't fix this. Healthcare couldn't fix this. Professional calm couldn't fix this. Nothing could stop the heartbreak that I was feeling in that moment when I realized my daughter was gone. And I've talked about before about believing with my whole heart that God met Emma there, that Jesus met her and took her home to heaven. I believe that deeply with everything I have. But lately I've been realizing something else. God met me there too. And I didn't feel it then the way that I'm feeling it now. Sometimes people think faith means you always feel God's presence clearly inside of suffering. And I didn't. I felt devastated, shocked, angry, pain beyond words. But just because I could not recognize him in the moment, it doesn't mean he was absent, because he stayed. He stayed through the days after and the months after and the years after, and he's still there. He stayed. He never leaves, never left, never will. Eventually, after carrying unbearable pain for a very long time, I reached a place where I realized I needed deep help, healing help, because surviving the loss was not the same as learning how to live again, and healing was an instant. Healing was messy, and it was layered, and it was hard, it was heavy, it involved surrender to God in ways that I'd never surrendered before. And somewhere inside that process, I began realizing God had not abandoned me in the fire. He had been walking with me through it, where I was refined by it. He was with me in the fire. And then yesterday happened. This is where the story becomes almost unbelievable. The dispatcher who answered the call connected to Emma's accident the day that I called 911 reached out to me because she found my book answering the call through her grandmother who'd sent it to her. And we started talking, and somehow through the conversation we realized her grandmother was my 4th grade teacher. Only she didn't recognize me because my married name, decades, life changes, I don't look the same. You know how it goes. And then another connection, her grandfather had worked Emma's visitation at the funeral because he worked at the funeral home. And yesterday I went back to that dispatch center, and while I was there, one of the firefighters connected to Emma's accident scene was there too. And I sat with these people. He was there with Emma. He was there with me. People much younger than me, people whose lives intersected with mine inside one of the worst, no, not one of the worst, the worst day of my life. And we talked about dispatch and trauma, and about the calls that stay with you, about things that can unexpectedly trigger us years later, about carrying weight silently. And somewhere inside that conversation, I found myself doing what so much of my life has trained me to do, helping someone else carry what they'd been carrying. And I thought, God, look at this circle. Look at this weaving. Look at all these years later. I was pregnant with Emma, working in that same dispatch center that I'd walked back into yesterday. That was the last time I was there before Emma's life unfolded, before that dispatcher was even born, before the firefighter was born, before any of us knew these stories that would intersect. God knew. And that brings me to 2 Corinthians 1. The God of all comfort comforts us in troubles so that we can comfort others with the comfort we ourselves have received. Maybe that is part of the mystery. Not that suffering becomes good, because it doesn't become good, but that God can somehow meet us inside of it, walk us through it, heal what feels unhealable, and then allow pieces of our healing to become shelter for someone else. Maybe today you're standing in a place that you never imagined. Maybe you're carrying things you thought you had already handled. Maybe you're wondering where God is in your story. Maybe you can't see him, and maybe you don't feel him. I understand that more than you know. But what if he has been there all along? Because he has. He was there before you were born, before this day, before this heartbreak, before the healing. The God who knew every road, every call, every intersection, every tear, every person, every chapter is still walking beside you now. Jeremiah 1:5, before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before. He knew. I want to go back because I said that the dispatcher or the firemen weren't even born yet. What I meant to say was that when I was traveling back and forth on that road, when I was 15 years old, those people hadn't been born yet. They came later. I'm sitting here trying to do the math, but they're much, much younger than me. Could be my children, okay, if I'd had them young. But what I'm saying here is that all the interconnectedness, all of these connections are purposeful. Me driving down the road, God preparing me to know where my daughter was when she died. That's not coincidence. Me becoming a police dispatcher, a 911 dispatcher. I say it like that because I worked for the police department before, the highway patrol, and then 911. It's all the same job, right? But me working in that same dispatch center that I walked back into yesterday, that I had not been in since I was pregnant with my daughter Emma, and not getting too deep into this yet, but Emma was a twin. I lost her twin. I was pregnant with them when I worked at that dispatch center, and yesterday I went back to it, and that was hard for me. And you know what else I found amazing? Because God works in amazingly mysterious ways, and you never know what God's going to do. He is always up to something. So CMT was playing in the background very quietly, as a soft background while they're working. Everyone was so busy working. And I was there for quite some time, and the songs that were playing were new songs, right? What's out now, what's popular now. But when I walked in, there was a song that was playing that's not popular now, that I don't know that it was ever popular. It was a Patti Loveless song called How Can I Help You Say Goodbye? How Can I Help You Say Goodbye is a song that I listened to over and over and over after Emma died. And I walked in, and that place, that dispatch center, felt familiar to me. It felt like home. because I sat there taking call after call, traumatic call after call, for so long. But that song was playing and I started crying. And the dispatcher that had answered the call the day that I called for Emma, asking if my daughter had been in an accident, had said that that call had sat with her, right? She introduced me to her dispatch supervisor and told me that he was a fireman that had worked in his accident. And I pulled up pictures of the accident as the shoe, and he was in the pictures. He was in the pictures. He was there that day. Everything came flooding over me. I mean, like I could not have orchestrated this in any way. My mind was so in awe and overwhelmed in a good way, because I'm always asking God to give me more connections with Emma, more people that she has affected in her story, her life, more pictures that maybe friends have. I'm always asking for more connections. And that's what I got yesterday morning whenever I opened up my Facebook and had a Facebook request from this 911 dispatcher who'd said that she had bought my book called Answering the Call. I wrote that book for dispatchers because I was one, about the life that they live that sometimes just seems to be so dismissed by the rest of the world, so that they would feel seen. Because they are the first touch point to getting help. They are the first touch point when we have an emergency, when we are like calling and saying, has my daughter been in an accident? When I'm pretty sure she has, and I'm pretty sure she's gone. And when I asked her, how did I sound to you? And she said, terrified. Terrified. Terror in your voice that has sat with me. And I have prayed for you. I've prayed for your healing. God gave me a full circle moment yesterday as I come 3 weeks before the passing of my daughter's anniversary, her going home to heaven. And it's been important to me for a long time to be able to share all this interconnectedness, because I want people to understand that God, when He says, I know you, I formed you in your mother's womb, He's known about us since before we were born. We were planned, we were purposeful. You are here for a purpose. Your life is not haphazardly just you landed here. You were made for a purpose, for God's good. And I am so convinced of that. If you are struggling to know why you are here, if you should be here, I just want you to know that you should, and that God loves you, and that He has a purpose for your life. And everything is connected, and nothing is by chance. And everything that you go through, every road that you walk down, everything that you stumble across, it will make you stronger. It will lead you to who you are meant to be. Everything that happened before brought us to where we are today, and everything we're going through right now is getting us to the next place in our future. God uses all things for His good and in His time. Thank you so much to my 4th grade reading teacher for finding my books and sharing them with her granddaughter when she didn't even know they were from her former student. Thank you to that dispatcher, to Allie, for reaching out to me. It means more than you know. It means so much to me to put all these missing pieces together. Thank you to everyone listening, here, there, and everywhere in the United States and all over the world. Thank you for listening. If this podcast was helpful to you in any way, please like, comment, share. This is how we make it reach other people. This is how other people get the Word of God, mental health help. When they're struggling, if they feel like they have no purpose, maybe this will help them. If you are struggling or in a crisis, please call 911 or 988, the National Suicide Prevention Hotline. Dear Lord, I ask you to be with every single person that has signed on today to listen to this podcast, God. I ask that you show them how loved they are, how much you have planned for their life, that you can use them no matter what their circumstances are, that you have a purpose and you have a plan far greater than they can even fathom, Lord. I ask that you bless them with comfort and healing and hope. In your name I pray. Amen. God bless you. I hope you have a wonderful week, and I hope to see you back here on Tuesday and Thursday and again on Sunday as we just keep walking this journey together.